Alright, I admit it, I just can't let things go. The end of anything's a daunting prospect, a reminder that all things must pass. I've been doing this video series for so long now that I just don't want it to end. Also, my fears of mortality aside, these games really are incredible, the acme of the gaming art form. It's the thought of games as brilliant as this and the prospect of discovering new ones that keeps me coming to the table again and again and again, that makes me want to write and talk about these things. Games this good deserve a little more time spent on them. That's why I've decided to split my top 10 into 2 parts, just so I can talk about these brilliant games just a little bit more. Now, you may take issue with my assertion that these are the best that hobby has to offer, and you're totally within your rights to proceed to the comments section and let me know about it in the strongest terms. Or tell me I'm brilliant, the choice is yours, although the former is much more fun. So, for the penultimate time, I give you bloody Reiner Knizia. There was nothing that he can't do. After a career spent designing hundreds upon hundreds of games, it's a fairly sure bet that he'll end up touching every genre. This is his foray into the world of train games, a deeply devoted corner of the hobby that has created its own separate palatinate. Train gamers have their own laws, their own lexicon, and even their own hashtags. Also, they have their own way of doing things, with a vast array of 18xx titles being variations on an established theme. This could be why Stephenson's Rocket has not been embraced by that community, or any other one for that matter. This doesn't feel like any other train game I've played. It has all of the familiar tropes of train games. It has shares and route building and station erection, but all of this is shot through with Knizia uniqueness. It's like he was given a pamphlet on what a train game should be, but the descriptions were so meagre that he just made it up. What he made up, though, is by far my favourite train game. A true Knizia design and one of his best. The design is so clean and pure, so Reiner Knizia. There are only a few things you can do on your turn, but from this limited palette of decisions, a tangled labyrinth of mistakes, regrets and recriminations emerge. So many of Knizia's designs take a central idea and run with it. The central idea of Stephenson's Rocket is that capitalism in the time of the Industrial Revolution was unremitting and brutal, and wow does he run with it in this game. This game is an unreconstructed bastard and I love it. The exemplar of this in Stephenson's Rocket is the veto mechanism. If you can hold shares in a company, you can use those shares to make sure that your opponent cannot build their line where they want to, and if they miss the spot where they built their station, all their hard work was for nothing. The result of this one idea is that you are forced to scrutinise the plans of your opponents, and they in turn are forced to scrutinise yours. This is where the game really starts to feel like Knizia, as he clambers into your brain and starts pulling levers. This is what's so compelling about Stephenson's Rocket. The constant think and double think, the need to make your rivals think you're playing their game until the last minute where you pull the handle on the junction box and go off in an entirely different direction. In the best of Knizia, the rules are there to encourage interaction of the players. This is certainly the best of Knizia. Bloody Reiner Knizia, I interviewed Francesco Nepitello, one of the designers of this one, for an article I wrote about its development, and what was made clear to me is that the team behind War of the Ring revered Tolkien and held the work of Tolkien at the centre of everything they did. War of the Ring is not some sort of ham-fisted self-insert with crushingly bad writing, poorly draped in Tolkien-esque garb.
The sea is always right!
No, I'm not talking about anything specific, though. With this central ethos in mind, it's clear why War of the Ring is such a success. It's because the designers want you to feel the soil of Middle-earth under your feet, and they've succeeded on every level. Each faction is beautifully tailored. The Shadow Forces feel legion, relentless and unstoppable, and there is a real sadistic glee when you put a city to siege. The Nazgul float from battlefield to battlefield, strengthening their forces with malign power. Playing the Shadow gives you a feeling of marshalling millions, throwing them at the walls of bastions with no thought to their lives. If you play the Shadow, you see the living as resources, flesh machines to be used and discarded. For all of the power though you feel playing the Shadow, there is a little itch at the back of your scalp that will grow, more distracting the longer the game plays. As the Free Peoples, you're up against it from the first second. The first challenge is to shake the various races of Middle-earth out of their complacency. So much of your early game is politics, manipulating the political track so you can then muster and fight. Every unit as the Free Peoples is precious, and you have to be massively judicious in battle. Then through all of this, a different game is being played as the Fellowship wends their way through Middle-earth, trying to avoid the Nazgul and their inevitable corruption. There is a true feel of hunting and being hunted here that is truly masterful. What is so wonderful about War of the Ring is how the mechanisms feed so seamlessly into the story you're telling. As the Shadow, there is a real glee in taking Minas Tirith or Rivendell. As the Free People, there is a feeling of crushing loss when Aragorn dies prematurely, or you send off poor Gimli and Legolas to their deaths. War of the Ring takes Tolkien's story and lets you remix it and make the story yours. It never, though, and I can't repeat this enough, it never inserts barely disguised undergraduate politics of the modern age to make a comment on today that is totally out of keeping with the spirit of Tolkien.
There's a tempest in me.
You know, I don't know why I keep saying things like that. This is one of the Splotter lads' greatest achievements in a career of great achievements. This game, more than any other of their designs, feels truly epic. It has the most perfect of arcs. You start small and insignificant, and by the end of the game, you're commanding a grand territory and juggling the difficulties of keeping your land alive. This is not a game of grand and gallant conquest. This is a game that reminds you that the robes of state are heavy garments. Administration is a bastard in Antiquity. This is also the most Splotter of their games. To play your turn is almost laughably easy. You place stuff, and if you can afford it, you build it. That's it. But as with most brilliant games, learning the rules is not playing it. Antiquity displays another facet of Splotter design most starkly, and that's a strong distaste for suboptimal play. If you make a mistake, especially early in the game, you're fucked. Totally unable to do anything. Antiquity is not a game for the faint of heart. Last time I played this, I didn't build enough wood early, and in the subsequent 3 hours were miserable. Don't let this utter disdain for noobs discourage you from playing this one, though. It's truly brilliant. That you choose your own victory condition halfway through the game is revolutionary, and the satisfaction you get from achieving that condition is transformative. A friend of mine won this once through a masterful manipulation of the mechanisms, and the effect on him was remarkable. His pupils dilated, his face turned red, and he sat there afterwards, open-mouthed, incredulous that he'd managed to pull off something so audacious, so cool. This is the effect that Antiquity can have on you. This game is a marathon, but when you cross the finishing line, you're submerged in endorphins. This game is bloody brilliant. Max Goetz is one of those grand old German game designers. He's been publishing brilliant Euro games for decades. It's people like Max Goetz that are responsible for the hobby as it is today. Wonderful games that are the foundation of modern analog gaming and gave birth to generations of new gamers, picking up notebooks and meeples and setting to work themselves. Concordia is his masterpiece. There is some strange alchemy in the rules of this game. To play a game of Concordia is to play a game that uplifts and delights, and to finish a game of Concordia is to be awash with all those lovely brain chemicals that make you feel fantastic. There is a warmth that permeates your body after a game of Concordia, a gentle satisfaction and also an exhilaration, and an exhilaration that makes you want to play games. Concordia fills me with a hunger for gaming, and that's because the simple act of playing it is a commune with something that, if we didn't know the hands that had created it, could almost be considered divine. It's so bloody simple too. Play a card and do what it says, that's it. And from the brilliantly designed actions across your deck of cards, 1,000 flowers bloom. Every aspect of this game has been impregnated with fun. Building connections, gathering cards, hoarding resources, all of it is brilliant. Everything you do builds upon your initial strategy. It's a hoary old cliche, but the journey really is the destination, and the journey you take playing a game of Concordia is a voyage through the most prepossessing and breathtaking vistas in all of game design. The very best of what games have to offer is here, and you should board the expertly crafted bark named Concordia and go where it wants to take you. You'll be a better person at the end. The first RPG I ever played as a pot-doused 17-year-old was Call of Cthulhu. It was a transformative experience. After 2 nights of playing till the morning, I was hooked on Lovecraft. The idea of the alternative history of the Earth, the huge civilizations that had crumbled that we had no knowledge of, and the pantheon of malevolent gods trying to invade our world was mesmerising. I devoured his work and loved my time spent in his indifferent universe. When I got into board games, I was drawn towards Cthulhu games and was always left disappointed. The horror of Lovecraft had been turned into shooting Tommy guns at Azathoth, completely absurd. These games were senseless and totally out of keeping with Lovecraft's world. I gave it one last go with the Arkham Horror living card game, and I wasn't disappointed. Through brilliantly constructed mechanisms and spare utilitarian prose, the designers of this game had managed to evoke that cold Lovecraftian playing. They had added one thing though, a thing that is vital for a game to work. They had inserted hope. There are no heroes in Lovecraft, but there are heroes in the living card game. Flawed heroes, but good people who have faith that their good will be rewarded. The scenarios here are expertly devised and make brilliant use of the cards, turning them into pieces of set dressing to help tell their story. There is real variety here too. The heroes feel different and their unique abilities allow players to explore a myriad of playstyles. Also, this isn't just a solo game with extra components in the box. Each member of the team adds something to the experience, and more than one mind working on a problem adds depth and interest. Victory isn't easy though. The constant dread and pressure of Lovecraft's world abounds here, and if you can achieve victory, it will be incredibly hard fought. And that's why this game is so good and adds something to the Cthulhu mythos. It doesn't butcher or poorly imitate it, it makes it richer and takes Lovecraft's ideas to a different place. Unlike Lovecraft, Arkham Horror the Living Card Game wants to believe that there is good in the world and evil can be defeated. Bullshit, but incredibly compelling if it's told right. And this game tells it right. We're nearly there. Next week, I have to say goodbye to this incredibly fun project. It really is a joy writing about so many fantastic games. If you enjoyed this or hated it, please leave a comment below and even give it a thumb. You can sub to the channel because it's the numbers that keep me awake at night. And if you want to be like one of these wonderful people, you can support the show at the link in the description. So thank you again, and I'll see you next week when the glaring reality of mortality will be even more clear. Well, that's a happy note to end on.